You are listening to Down Home. This week, Jay and I have a conversation with Joshua Watkis, a renowned spoken word poet. In this wide-ranging conversation, we discuss community, family, and inspiration. Also known as Scribe, this talented young man through spoken word poetry and hip-hop has taken thousands into his world to experience it as he does. The Scarborough-born poet has performed on stages across Canada, appearing on CBC, and has opened for the legendary hip-hop band The Roots.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, simple breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, yeah.
Welcome to Down Home, the Nova Scotian experience from two black men. I'm Derek Wise, and as always, we have Jay Jones.
What's happening, y'all?
And our conversation this week is with Joshua Watkis, aka Scribe.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Good, man. How you doing? Thanks for giving us your time this week. It's awesome.
I'm grateful to be here. I'm doing well. I just got back from vacation with my family, so
That's
so
good.
I'm down
so
and
you're
solid.
relaxed, man. You're relaxed.
As much as you can be with a toddler.
Yes, that's true. But you do look pretty chill right at the moment, so that's good.
Yeah, man. Son did me nice.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, that's good. Where did you go?
We went to the Dominican Republic.
Oh,
Oh.
nice. We're
Yeah.
actually heading there in a couple weeks ourselves, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Guys
They just had a hurricane, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, everything's fixed up, huh?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we're four of us are going. It's going to be the old men gone wild there.
I'm bringing a cane.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, let's jump into it, man. So you kind of grew up in the Scarborough area.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what the sense of community was growing up in Scarborough.
It was special, man. It was special. I think Scarborough's, to give a little context, it's the biggest area in Toronto. It has the largest geographical makeup, and the cultures that are interdispersed there are probably the most diverse in the city.
Mm-hmm.
The city is pretty segregated by culture and community, but Scarborough in particular has such an overlap of different people. I actually wrote about it, specifically the street I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Asian Court, which is a predominantly East Asian area, like very Chinese, Korean. But the beauty of my neighborhood was that on my street we had, I believe, 6 Jamaican families.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 Jamaican families all living the stretch of the street, and so we were all around and together.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents, and looking back now, I understand it better. But they all kind of made peace offerings to each other to make sure that down the street all the kids were kind of protected and looked after if one set was there.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all mind if I share that with you?
Yeah, sure.
Not at all.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was 5 families. My street in the east had 5 Black Jamaican families, each with 2 kids apiece, 3 married couples and 2 single moms. My street in the east had me moving like big bro to kids I didn't really know like that until I did. The first week we moved in, my mama preed the first of these, sent me down the road with a jar of strawberry jam, and my crooked teeth told me, give this to that lady. Even back then, I knew this was more than generosity or a gesture of peace, but an older me can translate. Picture a different world through the small act of faith. The jar of jam in the hands of a firstborn son said, here is my life and a transparent gift, both of them sweet, precious to me. And you know that I know that a single pair of eyes can only see so far down the street. Our kids might end up friends. So should we. If it takes a village to raise a child, maybe this could be the way we meet needs, touch base, be kind, build community.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah.
That's very rich, man. It's very rich, and that sense of community. Both me and Jay can relate. Like the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was that type of neighborhood where if I was playing down the street and my grandmother, was looking for me, someone would see me go by and say, "Hey, Derek, your grandmother's
Mm,
looking for you."
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's special, and that growing up with that's very rich, man. That's very rich.
Yeah, you did
Yeah.
feel protected too. Like someone had not only your parents, your family, but the other people were really watching your back. It was, now looking
Hmm.
back, like you say, you're like, wow, that was actually a really cool thing.
Hmm.
Hmm. And you can lean on the people around you. Like I know even the kids, like if one of our parents or if both of our parents weren't home, my mom was just my mom, but she knew that if any of the other kids were going through or their parents were working late or whatever it was, like they could come by us.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I was 9, 10. I was there till I was 15, but that
Hmm.
gave me the ability to look after a whole bunch of kids
Hmm.
um, that weren't just me and my brother.
Yeah. 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 No,
Yeah,
that's
that extended community family, man.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
important. It shapes people. It shapes identities. It shapes who you are growing and the personality that you carry into as you climb the sort of your own social, altitudes.
Hmm.
True, true. Now that you've seen some changes to that community as well as Toronto as a whole as you've grown, obviously, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
do you think that sense of community has changed since you've become a man?
Up and down, yeah. I think I'm turning 30 next year, and the difference in children's childhoods, I think it varies by neighborhood and by community, right? I know
Hmm.
on that street now, I don't think more than two of the families that live there have stayed since.
Right.
Um, and so people obviously like there's some upward mobility financially, um, but different neighborhoods do different things. I know poor people know how to stick together,
Hmm.
and they try their best to. But I also think the city's gotten more and more individualized as gentrification has happened
Hmm.
Yes.
because some people leave to preserve themselves and to avoid the dangers of a neighborhood, and then some people stay because they don't want to lose their community, but it's spread further and further thin.
Hmm.
I don't know, like I live in a condo, and I don't know my neighbors like that,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and that wasn't always the case depending on which neighborhood I lived in. But I knew the names of my neighbors in Rexdale when my family moved out to Rexdale. I knew the names of like 7, 8 different families down the road when I lived in Scarborough.
Hmm.
Um, and so that sense of like intricate community isn't there. And even the duration of friendships is different.
Hmm.
I think two of the families that lived on that street, one of them the Jamaican family that we had ties. My stepfather was friends with my friend who lived down the street's dad, and that went back well before my mom had ever known him. They were at my wedding,
Hmm.
and then my friend who lived across the street, who was Tamil, was one of my groomsmen.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And we hadn't lived in the same area in over a decade.
Right.
We
Yeah.
hadn't seen each other on a regular basis in over a decade. I don't think that happens with kids in the same way anymore,
Yeah.
Hmm.
unless their parents grew up with those values.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that changing sense of community has added to, like, there's a little bit of increase in violence in certain areas, and there was a shooting, a horrible shooting in Scarborough
Hmm.
recently, outside of a school. Do you think that changing sense of community has added to the increase in violence?
I don't ever want to say that like it's the shit, but it might. Maybe yes, maybe yes. I think when you put a community under strain long enough, more pressure builds up. I think that's how
Mm,
I wanna try and view it. And so, we talk about um, incarceration and the rates of incarceration in a community. And the more that happens, the less role models you have around.
Yeah.
We talk about, if someone's got to work, 60 hours to 80 hours to keep food on the table and pay rent because the prices are astronomically higher.
Yes.
You're not having people as grounded in the youth and taking care of the kids and mentoring them.
Yeah.
And so the more time goes by with kids having to live with the realities of those pressures and not being taken care of by the city at large, not having the same access to programs, not having the same access to health and work and relative safety, where are they going to go but to the things that make them feel most protected? And so like the kids are left out majorly.
Yeah.
And James Baldwin said it, like, the work we do isn't for the adult, we do it for the kid.
Yeah.
Because the kid's the one that needs to be safe, and if the kids aren't safe, then nobody's safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they don't have that stability to take it and pass on to the next generations, that's where some things sometimes fail, because life is such a melting pot in these communities, in these neighborhoods. And you find people sometimes, probably, as you said, like the children probably gravitating to places where they are seen, and it might not be the best place that they're in, but they can be seen and felt. Yeah.
I think these are issues that are prevalent in every neighborhood across Canada, and especially neighborhoods that are predominantly people of color.
Yeah,
I really do think that, and it's I think it's affected Halifax, and it's affected a lot of neighborhoods in Toronto as well. Like just a little side note about that. When we grew up in Halifax, there wasn't a lot of violence, like extreme violence, like gun violence and beatings and stuff like that. I remember going back when me and Jay, I was telling you, Joshua, that me and Jay met up in Toronto around 2000.
Yeah.
And first thing I did was to go back home and visit my family there, my mother. And I remember sitting in the house and thinking, I'm going to go up the street, go for a walk up. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. My mother said, "You shouldn't be walking with her by yourself." And I said, "This is something that I did all through growing up, right?"
Totally.
And she was like, "No, you shouldn't be going out there by yourself. There's been a rash of swarmings, like people that are walking on their own getting beaten."
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. So anyway, it's an issue, man. It's an issue. It's something that we have to talk about and address. Definitely.
Very much so. Yeah, it definitely. Wow, good point, D. Now, Joshua, like for me and D, like hip hop was the boom bap for us, and it was the soundtrack of our lives, and it inspired me in many ways, as far as expressing myself in my own personal way. I know it helped D as well, and it also helped me evolve as I do poetry as well, and it just made me sort of hone on that to find my way how to express things. And can you relate to that? Like, did that help you as a poet, hearing this music and hearing this way that people could express themselves with what was going on in the world today? I mean, I really grabbed onto that. I mean, I wasn't really immediately in that environment that some of the hip hop people were talking about back then, mostly the States. But in some ways I could relate. And it was just the way of like, holy, they're talking about what they're seeing. And I could relate to that. What about you?
It was different for me. I think I grew up listening to my folks' music, and my parents still don't like hip hop. My dad a little bit more so enjoys it, or at least enjoyed the old stuff. He was with me in Dominican, and he was talking about his first concert was Run DMC in Toronto. He was 14.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was 14. And it was their first world tour. We figured it out. I was there with some friends. But I started listening to rap when I was, or at least intentionally listening to rap on purpose, when I was like 11. And it was a stream of consciousness for me. I think kind of the same thing. Like, there was realities in the music that I hadn't heard in the same way in disco and in gospel and in the soul that my dad played around the house, and that my mom my mom listened to soft rock and country music, so there was something that there was a there was a realness in it that for me, like growing up in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, it spoke to me a lot differently to hear someone
Yeah.
speaking on realities.
Mm-hmm.
But I also grew up Jamaican, and my family were dub poets and playwrights, and so
Okay.
I always kind of grew up around poetry. So I started rapping at 14,
Mm-hmm.
writing my own raps. Shout out to DJ Khaled and the We Taking Over beat. That was the first beat I ever rapped over.
Rocked it.
Yeah, it was a good time. But that for me became a mode of expression too, of like just saying real. Actually, it didn't start out real. I was flossing about riding a bike, but like this.
Yeah, I was talking about chicken.
But it was real in that like I finally found something that allowed me to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
It was a voice that people couldn't take from me or steal from me,
Yeah.
and that was the most important thing. I think you grow up Jamaican culture, children are usually to be seen and not heard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I grew up very much in that principle.
Yeah.
And hip hop was a voice for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then spoken word kind of came a couple of years later because I was broke and I didn't have money to record or get a mic or get producers. So I was able to figure out my words and practice raps, but then also practice sharing some truths
Mm-hmm.
through poetry.
Right. So yeah, like, but what was that moment like within you that made you like, just despite money, but like what was it inside that was like that made you go, man, I need to do this? Like that point of vulnerability, vulnerability is power, right? And you can, but what was that moment where you like, this is it, this is where I need to stand up and do my thing regardless of what it,
what the impacts are and all
exactly.
of that. I think I was older then,
right?
So I'd been doing it for a few years. I was able to use whatever talent I had. I think, cliche as this is going to sound, it was a breakup.
Oh, really?
I was in college, and had like my first real. I was young. Now I look back, I was 18, and I had been using it as an outlet for a while. You were?
Scribe's young daughter joined us at this point, so you'll hear him talking to her, and you'll hear her in the background.
Me to kind of write down my feelings, processing that. I had already wanted to chase art. I had already wanted to do that.
Right.
But that was when I realized that like I had an ability that was better kept out than in.
Right.
It was true. Yeah, and sharing my work became much more important to me after writing that poem and realizing that I had more to say.
And you mentioned you had the foundation of your family being dub poets and everything like that. That plays a big thing too once you see it, right? And
absolutely,
and then you begin to feel it once you see something on a regular basis. And I've been privy to see you perform, and you're really good at it, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's years of work. It's okay that you don't hear anybody, baby. They're in my headphones. Do you want to hear them? Okay, I'll turn up my headphones.
All right.
You can come close and listen.
There you go. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
And now, can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on with Word is Bond?
Word is Bond is essentially just everything that I can bring to the table as an artist.
I got yogurt over my face.
Yes,
you do.
You do.
Yes, you do, big girl.
Yummy.
That's the best way to eat. That's the best way to eat yogurt.
I said that's the best way to eat yogurt.
Yep, that's how Derek eats yogurt. Over his face.
Are they laughing?
They're laughing because they think you're funny.
Yes.
Are you a comedian? Yeah, that's all the Word is Bond is really me trying to stick to the code I grew up on, and that's your word is everything. And so I teach that through spoken word and arts education, and that's kind of the main methodology of Word is Bond. It's me being able to help teach other people, not just to listen to my story and to hear other people's stories, but to tell their story in their words out loud.
Yes.
That's kind of the power of the spoken word, of poetry, of rap. It's this ability to to take who you are, take your experiences, take everything you've been through,
Yeah.
and narrate your story for yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A lot of people choose silence, and the problem with silence is that like you can start off wanting to keep things to yourself for good reason, to protect yourself throughout all of that. But anything that you don't release, Hope said it. You can't heal what you don't reveal.
Yeah.
But
It's true. And it can eat away at you too, you know? Yeah.
yep, and take roots and have different patterns. More yogurt.
Yeah.
All right, Daddy can take you to get more yogurt in just a minute. Okay. That's kind of the basis of everything. I want people to have the ability to tell their own story and say their own piece.
Mhm.
I'll scoop some up for you. And that changed everything for me once I realized that saying what I needed to say gave me power over my own story. No one
Yeah.
could use it against me.
Yeah.
No one could use my identity against me. No one could use my health against me.
Mm.
I had the power to say what I needed to say, and I could teach other people how to do that.
How to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
It's important work, man. It's important work.
Yeah, expression is pivotal to people sometimes, you know. I mean, not always, not everyone wants to be out there, you know, doing that, and they have their own ways to deal with things. But I notice people who are spoken word artists, it's or anyone who just expresses himself, you can just see that extension of who they really, really are. It's a really cool thing to experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, and even for I tell my students this all the time when I'm in classrooms. It's I don't care if you never do this in front of a group of people again, but if you can write it down for yourself and say it in front of a mirror out loud, that is all the power you need.
Yep.
I am a winner. That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to let it out. And for you to be leading people in that direction is really good because, you know, like you say, sometimes people can be quiet and they might be afraid. Fear is a big thing, but to create safe spaces for people to be able to express themselves is a really important thing without judgment. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
awesome. Scribe, thank you very much, man, for your time during this episode. Do you have anything else you want to kind of add or put out there before we let you go?
I think the only thing I can think of as my daughter is doing the 1-2 step across my lap is, you know what? It'll be 2-step. I just released a book. Since you're here,
Yeah.
Bubba, I just released a book of letters to my daughter to the
Really?
country of Canada. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
called Black Blossom Harsh North.
Mhm.
Wow. Cool.
Black Blossom Harsh North. It's 14 letters to her about navigating Canadian anti-blackness. I wanted to write them down before my time came because you never know with this country.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to write it down and share the things I wanted her to know. And I expect her to grow up and be taught about certain key elements of history. That's what I intend to do. I intend to teach her throughout her whole life.
Yeah.
But there are certain things I felt like if I don't say anything to you, these are the things I want you to know. And so I wrote them down. And then my stepfather taught me just before she was born. You can teach kids to fight racism, like how to combat racism and survive racism all you want. But if you don't address the institutions and disarm them before the kids have to fight them, then you've only done about 30% of the battle.
Yeah.
And so I wrote 7 letters to Canada and its institutions, hoping to address specifically Canadian anti-Black racism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just put that out.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's such a good thing. And just the subject matter, like all this systemic and institutional kind of stuff that we need an army to sort of talk about this and face it, you know, because that's the deep shit that gets hidden, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we would like to have you back to actually talk about that specifically, actually, man. Would you be up for that?
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Because this is the basis of the Down Home podcast is to have these discussions that unfortunately a lot of people in Canada are not having.
Yeah.
So yeah,
as it's designed by system. So I would love that.
That's great. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, we'll hold you to it. We'll hold you to it, man.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Do you have any performances or anything coming up soon?
In the next while, not that are public that I know.
Okay.
I know I'll be doing some work with Toronto Community Housing and with the Toronto Public Library. Right now, just looking for a new home for the Roots Lounge.
Yeah,
Mhm.
cool.
Because they shut down the last venue.
I heard that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's
Cool.
awesome. Jay Jones, take us out.
Yeah. It was a pleasure to meet you when I did doing spoken word, and it was a pleasure to get you to come and speak your piece, and it was a pleasure to meet your lovely daughter, and I'm glad you're doing things so much for the community and teaching something that I hold dear as well, is the art of expression. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer. I'm just getting into it myself again, but I also enjoy what it does, and I find it very empowering. And it's good to see someone who is, young, growing to be a man, still teaching on what you've learned from your past and passing it on. And that's our job, like as Black people sometimes, is being those griots and passing those stories and teaching what we're not getting taught. You know what I mean? Because there is a lot of stuff that doesn't get seen or heard, and it falls on deaf ears. So continue the good work, and thanks so much, man.
All
Will do. I
right.
Bye,
appreciate
Zara.
you.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Take
Take
care.
care, everybody.
All right, take care, man.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
You have been listening to Down Home. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Breaking new ground, 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 yeah. On a high plateau, from the one down below to the future of the funk, getting lost in the flow. Contact with the spot magex. Now it's time to flex with the force from the soul, reaching all aspects, getting deep, no time to sleep. As you reach your next phase, laying it all on the line. New trails start to blaze. It's a fire inside, a brand new path, breaking down the sum to one. Feeling free, I just laugh.
The song, Breaking New Ground, from The Breakdown.
Vibe like magic prescribed, only to see the perfect blend, like a diamond in the rough, ready to drop a perfect gem. It's time to shine so fine.